Hello, it's me. I'm back. I'm back in my place. I'm in my chair, in my room, and yeah, I can't promise that it'll be any different in terms of quality, but here I am. Welcome to the ProSynth Network show. We are live. It's episode 236. It is just gone 2 minutes past 7 here in the UK. I hope you are well. And we've got a great show for you today. We've got some interesting news topics to talk about. We've got special guests who are going to come on and talk about their latest thing. I think we all know who they are. And we might have somebody very special dropping in just to give us a hello and a heads up on some things. So stick around, because that's going to be a lovely surprise, I promise you, all being well. So do stick around for that. Before we do anything else... excuse me, let's get all the housekeeping rubbish out of the way. So we'll start off by saying, if you like what we do, give us a like, give us a comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and do share us around with your friends and your family and anybody else that you think might be interested in what we do every Friday night for a couple of hours. And we tried this a couple of weeks ago, asking you guys if you could like us, give us that thumbs up during the show, because I was told that it does make a difference. And then I checked the numbers, and it really does make a difference to us in terms of getting us out there. So if you wouldn't mind, if wherever you're watching from, if you could give us a thumbs up on YouTube, that would be brilliant during the show, actually during the show, rather than after. But of course, if you watching on catch up, then you can't do that during the show, so you have to do it on catch up. But anyway, just give it a go. I want to see if it actually really does, or whether that was just a blip. So thank you for that. But do give us a like or a dislike, because I know there are people out there that watch this channel that watch it and they don't like it, and they keep coming back, which is odd but strange. But nevertheless, we welcome you all. We don't care who you are, where you're from, whether you like us or not. We love that you come along and spend a couple of hours with us on a Friday evening, in our case, or afternoon in other people's. Sometimes it's the middle of the night. But welcome one and all. We are, of course, a community channel, and therefore we rely on the kindness of our viewers, and you're all very, very kind. And one of the ways you can be super kind to us is to support us on our Patreon channel. If you want to, you don't have to. It's not mandatory. It's a minimum $2 a month, and you'll get some free content, whether it's sounds for your synthesizers, video content, other bits and bobs. You get stuff that you don't get anywhere else if you sign up to us on Patreon, or if you sign up to us as a YouTube channel member. You get the same kind of benefits. It's the same value, a minimum of $2 a month. Of course, you can pay more. You don't have to, but it just helps to pay all the bills and keep us on air, and allows us to go and do the things that we did last week in Sheffield, and that we're doing this weekend in Bristol for Machina Bristronica. So it just helps us get out there and take wonderful synthesizers out to show you people, and let you get your hands on these classics. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. So there you go. You can follow us or support us there on Patreon. We are, of course, all over social media, apart from X, which we've come off because it's a silly place now. So YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, where we broadcast live, but we also do have Instagram and Threads. We don't really do much on social media, but you can give us some support on there. And we're on TikTok as well, which is bizarre. It's not really, I don't think, for us. We gave it a go. We might stick there. We might not. We've got half a dozen videos up there. They don't really get a lot of looks and likes. But yeah, there you go. It's all there if you want it. So we've got some special guests on the show. And if you have a question for them or for us, or any sort of thing that you would like us to pay attention to, then do stick a big capital Q in front of your question. And that way we can see it, and we can put it to one side and then come back to it at the appropriate time. And I think that pretty much does all of the stuff there, all the housekeeping stuff. We still haven't... Kent, I don't know where Kent is. Kent's probably fallen asleep on the sofa, so we won't come to him just yet. But we will come to the man that did a sterling, if somewhat laughable job last week, as he always does do, bless him. Welcome, Andrew. How are you?
Still recovering from
Still
that.
recovering.
It was that was interesting last week. But we're here now, and it's good. I've had my shots, COVID
Yep,
and
got
flu.
mine next week.
I've got a weekend of preparing for a big global video thing we're doing with Adobe and Lucid Link next week on the 14th and 15th, where they're recording stuff, believe it or not, in Miami. And live, almost as soon as it's recorded, it's being sent across the Atlantic to me and to a pal in Australia, and we'll be editing that, and I'll be putting some music on it.
Nice.
So yeah, that's going to be fun, and then getting it back up to them. So some real-time stuff, and lots and lots of fun. Lots and lots of fun.
Brilliant stuff. I would introduce you all, as if you needed introductions, to Kent Spong right now. And as if by magic, as the shopkeeper said, here he is. He's in the room. Hello.
Hello.
Hang on a minute. I was just going to... there we go. Let's do that. There we go. Oh, there's a bit of feedback going on there. Is that you? Yeah, it is.
What?
Oh, that's weird. Hang on a minute. Let's just do that. No, it's Mitchell. Your audio's buzzing back, Mitchell. I don't know what's going on there. I've just muted you for now. Anyway, hello.
Hello.
Again. It wasn't that long since we last were together.
Spooked.
I had an emergency job to do. Got it finished. They're now screaming back into town to get it back on stage for some gig tonight. I don't know who, what, or whatever.
Emergency
job.
But
so
flashing lights and everything.
Yeah, probably. But it's gone into my PB12 fund.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah, it's all good. So So I now just come upstairs and dinner, nothing. It's
oh dear. I'm sure she'll look after you. Don't worry.
Fall asleep, you mean?
Oh. So. Anyway, good to see you as always.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we crack on with topics and stuff, we've got some guests to introduce. So let's bring them both in. I'll unmute Mitchell. Hopefully the audio isn't too bad. But you know these guys. We love them. They come on every time they put something new out, which is fantastic. So let's go group shot. There we go. And it's Dan and Mitchell from Cherry Audio.
Hey.
Hello. Your audio, Mitchell, is a little bit. I'm kind of getting like myself back, but sounding like a robot. It's weird.
Yeah, nothing going on here.
It's a fantastic effect. Whatever it is, bottle it.
Yeah.
Stick that on the next plug. Okay.
Ooh, that's the Cherry Audio vocoder coming out next week.
Let's go.
The Dalek plug.
Oh, that's what it is. This is Cherry Audio teasing us with their next product. That's what it is. Isn't it, Dan?
No.
How are you, sir? How are you?
The product is called Technical Difficulties. I'm doing great, thank you.
Excellent. So we last spoke to you, I think it was back in July, wasn't it? It's a few months ago.
It was.
Yeah. But this is getting very frequent. Every few months we get you guys on. Yeah, it's fantastic. Everything good in your world? I mean, obviously you've got a new synthesizer out, which we're going to talk about in a little while. That's the Atomika. I want to talk to you also about the kind of soft launch that you did, because you've been teasing this for a little while with your T-shirts. We saw you at NobCon with your T-shirts, or the gang, that was there had the T-shirts. I want to talk to you about that. But you've taken on the mighty Polyvox.
It's a beast. It's not an easy instrument to replicate. That's for sure.
No, absolutely. We'll talk to you in more detail about that, because we've got we've got a special guest coming in. But it's great to see you. Let's just give Mitchell a wave. Everybody, give Mitchell a wave.
Hey, is my audio working now?
Oh, there he is.
Good.
He's back. Yay!
Hey, how's my audio?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Oh, it's just started to go a bit crunchy again. I don't know. No, it's
That's
okay.
bad.
Yeah, it's when
working?
you talk, there's kind of like a delay, and then you sort of sound very vocoded.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
All right, I will think very hard about this and try to figure out something else to be causing it.
Before we move on to something else, are you well?
Yes.
Great, because you're in your new place as well. So you got.
Yeah.
You were saying before we came on air that you were having some 1971 house issues. I think you've got 1971 internet issues there.
Yeah, all of that. They threw that all in. It cost a lot extra, but it was free with the house issues.
It's furniture. Yeah,
it's all good now.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll come back to you in a bit, and we'll see if we can get that crunchy audio fixed. So we'll do that, and we'll bring everybody in. We can sit and watch Mitchell. There, just so let's just mute the microphone. So we've got a special guest coming on in about, hopefully, all being about 15 minutes. So I thought what we'll do is we'll cram some stuff in before around 7:30, and then we'll hopefully have our little special guest, and then we'll crack on with all the serious kind of Atomika talk, and we'll talk about the instrument and the development and the history and all that kind of stuff. Before I do that, I want to say a very quick thank you to Ronald Wild for your $5.99 donation. Thank you very much indeed. And also to SJ88, thank you very much for dinner last weekend. You are more than welcome. It was a lovely meal, absolutely, and great to meet everyone and talk synth. Can't wait to try Atomika this weekend. Brilliant. Thank you for coming to the meal. Yeah, we had it was brilliant because we were at Synthfest in Sheffield, and we do we have a meal. It's kind of become a tradition now. We go out after the show, and a few years ago we literally stumbled across a restaurant. It was the only restaurant that had any sort of sign of enough room for. I think there was only about 10 of us at the time, and they were packed, but they said we could go in as long as we weren't longer than an hour, and I think we ended up being there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and they were absolutely fine about it. And because they treated us so nicely, we've gone back ever since. And so this year we had, I think, once everyone had turned up, we were the thick end of 26 to 28 people. And that's most of the restaurant full with all of us lot. So there was a whole bunch of Pro Synth Network viewers. We had Nick Batt from Sonic State, and Chris, who's also known as Midi Error, who helps him out when he does all these shows and records. So he was there. We had Kim Bjorn from Bukes, along with a wonderful Diana as well. She was there. Who else we had of note? Oh, Ty Unwin and the lovely Pip. They all turned up, and Ty was fantastic. And I need to say a massive thank you to Ty and to Manny Fernandez. Now, Manny Fernandez couldn't make it, but he sent us a substantial donation to the cost of the meal. And I just felt it was appropriate that Pro Synth Network should treat these wonderful people as well. And Ty put some money in. Nobody paid anything above their £10 deposit, and that was just a brilliant thing for us to be able to do. And I hope that everyone enjoyed it, and we'll hopefully be able to do it again next year as well. Can't make any promises. It'll be a surprise. But it was a great day. It was a great weekend, sort of. In all, and again, I need to say some thank yous. I need to say thank you to Peter James Stephen, who has been brilliant for this kind of round of shows that we're doing, because he and I discussed this idea about it being the 40th anniversary of the Emulator 2 this year, and we thought, what can we do? And Peter says, why don't we gather one of every emulator model that's ever been, and we put on a big stand? And we thought, sounds like a good idea. So this is what we did. Yeah. And this was us just after we loaded in and set up. So behind that fat bloke with the black T-shirt, there's an Emulator 2. And above that is a Proteus keyboard, which was something that Peter got like 2 days beforehand. Or was it the Mirage he got a few days before? Anyway, we thought we'd have the Proteus keyboard in there because that's quite a rare thing. But you can see an Emulator 1, an Emulator 2. In the racks, there's an Emulator 3 and an Emulator 4. And over on the right-hand rack, there is what is kind of affectionately known as the Emulator 5, which was Emulator X, which was the software version that ran on Windows. But Peter, this is the connection here, Peter developed a system called the Vampire Rack system, which you can see in the second cabinet at the top. And it's basically a Windows computer with PCI cards and RAID array drives and all sorts of gubbins going on. It's basically a standalone sampling system that you can hot swap the drives in and out. So if you were going from one studio to another, you didn't have to worry about the internet that didn't exist in those days, or certainly not in the way it does today. And you could just pop a drive out and go to the next studio who would have the same system and pop the drive in. But Pete was actually saying that his biggest customers were like theatres and shows, where redundancy was super important. So the Vampire rack system is there working on display. You might, the beady-eyed amongst you might have seen the other things that we've got in that rack. So there's a Proteus 2500 in there. There's an Oberheim DPX1, which of course is a sample playback device that could play back emulator samples. Where else? Oh yes, so there was the Mirage, and my Emax 2 was there as well. We thought we'd bring those along. So there was lots of stuff for people to come and look at, and we were inundated with loads and loads of people coming in and saying hi. We'd never met them before, but they're long-term viewers. And if you're watching tonight, thank you for coming along. If you're watching tonight because you scan that little QR code at the bottom of the stand and you're visiting us for the first time, welcome. It's an honour to have you here, and I hope that you come back. But this is what we did at Synthfest in Sheffield this year. And we're going to take this very same show with some extra bits. I think we're going to have a Prophet 2002. And I think Pete said he's going to bring a couple of other bits and bobs. So we're going to have an even bigger stand at Bristronica in Bristol tomorrow and Sunday. So it's early night for me tonight. What else have we got?
That
in terms
emulator one looks a lot better there than it did in my shed.
Well, there you go. It was dry and warm.
Yeah, for a change.
So, yeah, there's the stand without any people in front there. Genelex supplied on loan by the lovely people at Source Distribution, who supplied the monitors for us, which was great. They sounded superb. So yeah, that was the stand.
They're good for shows, aren't they?
They're very good. Yeah, very good. Now we need to mention this guy. So not the guy that's looking over his shoulder, who I know, whose name escapes me. He makes very small little synthesizer things, but it's the guy with the thumbs up. That is the one and only known in the chat as Pseudo Reboot. His name is Mark. He does have a real name. And I don't know if you can see there, he gave us, he gave me, Andrew and Kent, custom-made mugs, but filled with chocolates and treats. So I had a bag of minstrels, which I finished off last night. You had some M&Ms, didn't you, Andy? And
I did.
Kent's got some mint arrows.
Yeah.
I also think that Mark did a mug for Ian Cole as well. Yeah, it was brilliant. So it was very, very good, and it was just wonderful to meet all of these people that we don't see. Being here, obviously, it's the way it works. And they come up to us and say hi. And I was having random people that I've never, was just bounding over saying, "Oh, we love the show, brilliant, thank you." So if you're watching, and you were one of those people that bounded over to me either in the bar or on the show floor, thank you. It means a lot when you guys come over and say hi and tell us that you appreciate what we do. There were other things there. Let me take some pictures. Oh, this guy turned up, looking like a bit of a hitman.
The man in the Pac-Man.
Heston Blumenthal.
It's Heston Blumenthal. You never knew Heston like Synth. He's sat there at home watching, cursing us at the moment. Yeah. Peter's jacket was amazing. Look at that Pac-Man jacket. That's fantastic.
That's cool. Jacket. I like that.
Yeah. So yeah, Ty Unwin for the first time. I mean, Ty and I have known each other for years. We've never physically met. So there it was.
He never goes out.
Well, no, he's always working.
He gets sunburnt when he opens the fridge door.
Not long after, he was over at this man's stand, literally, and I do not lie, I'm not exaggerating, he was bouncing like Tigger when he saw this thing. He was literally like up and down, up and down.
Phil Mitchell.
Yeah, it is the Mitchell brothers, isn't it? But let's have a closer look at what was causing the stir. This is Tom Carpenter's TC5000, which is not an ARP 2500 clone, okay, other than he has been inspired by the workflow. All of the module circuitry is his own designs. He's kind of borrowed from previous designs of his own synthesizers and modified some. But he was very keen to point out that what's inspired this is the workflow, and he really wanted to do that. And so instead of the sliders, he's used pin matrices, which is quite a clever idea. And it sounded amazing. But it's going to cost you $22,000.
Aren't the pin matrices at the top a lot bigger than on the 2500?
I believe they are. Yes.
Yeah, certainly more.
There's more options,
more selections available.
Yeah. But we'll talk about this a little bit later. But that was there, and that caused a stir because nobody knew that was coming until the Saturday morning. And I walked round the corner, and I'm like, because I knew Tom had got his regular spot right at the front, and he, for the last few years, he's had Colossus or Maximus, and I thought this year he'd probably bring the cut down Maximus. So when I sort of looked around and couldn't see anything, I was like, has he turned up? Maybe he's not well. And as I moved around, I thought, oh, look, he's brought an ARP 2500. And then within a few seconds, I thought, that's not an ARP 20. Ooh, what's this? And then he's kind of stood there sort of chuckling to himself because he knows that I'm like, ugh, this is brilliant. And I spent the most time across the whole weekend ogling that thing and taking lots of close-up pictures. It got Dina very excited. She literally phoned me that as soon as she saw those pictures, when she got up, she was on the phone asking about it. So yeah, she was very excited about it. Other things that were there, this was I don't think this was the David Bowie mini Moog. There is a bit of a legend around it, I don't know, but this was on the Butte stand, of course, because they're promoting their fantastic new book, the Mini Moog book. So that's there, and of course the Mini Moog will there'll be a theme across the show where the Mini Moog is quite prevalent. I was bumping into the rich and famous. That is, if you don't recognise him, if you're not of a certain age, that's Bono. Yes, Bono. It's Phil Oakey of the Human League. I see him every year, and we have a little chat every year because he tends to come round when we're loading in, so you can get sort of a closer look of things without having to get disturbed. And every time we see him, we have a little chat, and I always think, I should have taken a photo. So this year, Tom took the photo of me and Phil. So that was very nice to see him again.
How can you be his age, that tall, that thin, and that gorgeous? How does that happen?
Yeah, and Phil's pretty nice too.
I thought you were talking about the badger.
The badger, yeah. It was an odd little thing, that. Anyway, and yeah, so we all went out for a meal afterwards. Here's a picture of, we had people on all those tables, loads of people. You can pick out Keith in Watford from a mile. And of course, these two have a big love affair relationship, Ty and Robert there. So I had to get that picture in there. But yeah, it was a brilliant day, a brilliant weekend, all in all. And thank you to everyone that came along. We're so delighted to see you all and hear from you. And yeah, fantastic. So if you want to come and see us again, we are tomorrow. I'm getting up at stupid o'clock and driving all the way down to Bristol for the weekend. And you can come and see us at Machina Bristronica, which is taking place at a venue called Document. And it's in Bristol, like the heart of Bristol. It's very easy to find. It's near the it's like a big shopping centre. I can't remember the name of it now. But yeah, it's easy. You can find, if you just Google Machina Bristronica, you can buy tickets still, I believe. And it's one of these things that goes on like all night. They've got they're going to have live music all the way through the show in separate stages. There's going to be a main hall with all the stands and everything, and then it goes on into the night until 3 o'clock in the morning. I think is the last act at the after show on Saturday night, and then they do it all again on the Sunday. So it's a kind of, I've never been, so I'm looking forward to that. So if you come into Machina Bristronica, do come and say hello to myself and Peter. We're going to be next to the mighty Dave Rossum. His stand is going to be next to our stand, which has to be the most serendipitous piece of placement, what with our emulator display, which I'm told he's quite excited about. So not much pressure going on there. Anyway, so Mitchell is hopefully back with us.
Hopefully.
Yay!
Is it working?
Yay! He
sounds
okay.
okay.
There you go.
Okay, restart my audio interface. Okay, so I'm so sorry. Like,
no,
this stuff never breaks for me, but of course, as soon as you're doing something like this,
if it's going to break, it's going to. Yeah, absolutely. If it's going to break, it's going to do it.
Well, you've got a Polymog, you'll be used to it.
Yeah. That's right. So I haven't fired. I actually finally took it out of the road case since we moved in March, and you'll all laugh. I haven't had the nerve to try to fire it up and see.
No,
what
I don't blame you.
Sitting there so I can look at it.
All the time it's not turned on, it's not broken.
Yeah,
that's it. It's Schrodinger's Polymog.
Yeah. Bless them.
Indeed. So welcome everyone. Welcome Mitchell. Thank you for persevering. We appreciate it greatly. So we've got a few more minutes. Hopefully, our guest of honour, not that these two guests aren't honourable, but we have a kind of a special little surprise for everyone. Let's very quickly talk about something so we can just fill out the few minutes. Let's see, where should we start? I was going to point everyone to this, just as we're still sort of tying up the Synthfest stuff. Our friend Ian Cole actually did some really decent video duties. Let me add this to the stage. So I'm sure he won't mind me playing some of this. So he did a little walkabout video, basically taking in as many of the stands as he possibly could. And he kicked off with our friends at Resonance Studios, who've been in touch with us, and we might be actually sort of doing some work together soon, which is very interesting. They had an Elka Synthex there, which is quite topical. Lin 9000. They had the non-linear Lab C15. So yeah, it was a very good video that he's done. It's about 8 minutes long. Takes you around, speaks to a few people. There's Susie from Sound on Sound. Yeah, there's the Teenage Engineering stand. But yeah, we won't spoil it for you. Go over to Ian's channel, which is Ian J. Cole. It's very easy to find, and then go over there and have a watch. He did a video on the Friday because he helped us load in. Thank you very much, and he helped us load out as well. But he's done a nice little walk around there. So give him a look and a like over there. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah,
right.
His videos are really good.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do a very quick bit of news. Okay, we'll do this one. I don't have a video for this. I don't think they did a video for this. But this is the news that there's a new Hydrasynth in town, and it's been made in the best color in the world. It's orange. It's a Hydrasynth Explorer, and it bears an odd name. This is its full name. I kid you not. This is the Hydrasynth Explorer 888 units. That's its full name. So I guess the clue is in the name that they're only making 888 of these. And 8 is a very lucky number, apparently, in certain countries and certain cultures.
Numerology, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is it. This is the Hydrasynth Explorer 888 units. And if you like orange synths, this ticks all of your boxes. There's nothing else that's different about it other than the name and the colour. It is a Hydrasynth Explorer, which is an incredibly powerful little synth, which also has the polyphonic aftertouch of its larger brethren. And apparently they will be at Bristronica tomorrow. So if you want to see one of these in the flesh, because the last one they did was at Super Booth when they did the silver ones to celebrate their 5th anniversary. And yeah, there's a comment in the chat. The price is 888. You know what? It's not far off, and that's the surprising thing. I did see Ken Pierce in the chat earlier on. I don't know if he's still around. Maybe he can tell us why this is nearly, not quite, but nearly double the price of a regular one. It's an interesting move.
I was wondering about whether or not does it have a polyphonic aftertouch keyboard, and did the original? I wasn't sure if the original Explorer did.
Yeah, it did.
It did.
It's had it from the get go.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it's great. It's got they're not mini keys; they're like mid-size keys, and it's a very nice. I played one, and it's a very nice keyboard to use if you don't mind using keys that are smaller than regular sizes. But it's very orange, and it's rather expensive. But there you go. Quick thoughts on that, anyone? Before we move on.
I think orange plastic is the rarest of all the plastics.
Oh well, that'll be it then.
Right.
That'll be it. That'll be it. Wise words there. Orange is the most expensive plastic. But there you go. I suppose if you're very style conscious, that's what you want.
It would match my living room.
Yeah. I know another big fan of orange synths is of course Keith in Watford. I hope that he'll be buying one of those. I'd be rather remiss if he doesn't. Same for Ty Unwin. Ty's a big fan of orange. So
is he?
Yes, he is.
Well,
It's his
orange
favourite
is.
colour. Orange is. No, but orange is his favourite colour. Anyway, there you go. ASM Hydrasynth. It's the ASM Hydrasynth Explorer 888 units is available now in all good synthesizer shops and possibly some bad ones as well. That is that. We, ladies and gentlemen, have a very special guest, and I want to bring in this very special guest because we haven't seen her for a little while, but she's here with some very important news and information, and hopefully some real positive vibes, because it's not been a great time of late. It is the one and the only Michelle Moog Kusa. Round of applause. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome back. You've been away for a while, haven't you?
Yes, I just got back from 17 days away from Asheville. I was in Europe and then in New York City. So
it was kind of a blessing in one way that you were away, but also an incredibly stressful thing because, of course, we all know what happened in Asheville a couple of weeks ago.
yeah, it was very stressful not being here, but it, as you say, was also a blessing because no one else in our organization had power or internet for quite some time. Some of them still don't have power or internet, so there wasn't much work that could get done. So I just kind of picked up where I could while I was in Europe and ran that side of the organization from afar.
Which must have been just like so stressful. I can't imagine how that must have been.
Yes, I was, really concerned, and there are still a lot of course, the devastation here is unthinkable. Fortunately, not in the Moog, but in our area, and the variables for the Moog are still unknown. We have no idea when we're going to be able to repair our exterior, when we're going to be able to reopen, if there's going to be anyone to reopen to. Our governor has told all visitors not to come and visit Western North Carolina, which is completely understandable. It just cuts off the lifeblood, at least, of the Moog for the time being.
Because October, if I remember rightly, is one of your busiest months in terms of footfall, isn't it?
It's the second busiest month of the year because of the fall colors.
Yeah. So it couldn't have come at a worse time, really. But there are positive things.
Yes. I mean, all things considered, we got incredibly lucky. Not only was the Moog only damaged on the exterior, our offices that are behind the Moog are okay. We also have 2 climate-controlled storage units off-site,
of course,
for the archives. And they also, as far as we know, they are not damaged. The building they're in is right by the river. They did experience some flooding, but only on the first floor, and we are on the second and third floors. Yes.
Wow.
We have not been allowed in the building, but it is a absolutely pristine building, very well equipped. Excellent. So we're hoping for the best with that.
Would you mind if I just shared, because you sent a couple of photos of the Moog. I just want to share these with people. I apologize because these are going to land right over your face. There's nothing I can do to move them, but there we go. So this is from across the street, and you're right, it doesn't look awful. I mean, you've got a boarded up window there and the signs have come off, but you've managed to keep your presence there, and that's it from another angle. But it looks like you were very, very lucky, very fortunate, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like much damage, but just to replace the frame, because the frame broke in several places, and to replace that awning because it was ripped, is gonna be over $15,000.
Wow.
That's when not even starting to talk about the glass that needs to be replaced, and then we have a security film on that glass. Thank goodness we have that film, because that's what's holding it's holding the window together right now. I have no idea how much that's going to be. And Craig, our assistant director, who many of you know, let me know that the glass company that supplied our glass was flooded to the extent that they're out of business at the moment.
Oh no!
So we're having to source our glass other places, and as you might imagine, any kind of provider of construction materials around here is incredibly busy. So
Yeah.
these will speak to some of the variables that we don't know when and how we're going to just be able to fix the fairly minor repairs that we have.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, we're just like super happy that you're all safe as individuals, which is fantastic, and we're also super happy that other than some of that exterior damage, everything that you've worked so hard for, the archive, the Moogseum, and everything else, seems to have survived. And I'm sure that you'll be back on your feet as soon as we can and as soon as so we can all help. And the thing is, it kind of coincided with something that could make a big difference. And we're always plugging you guys on here. We always want to make sure that people recognize you and do whatever they can to support you in a financial way. But one of the great things that you do is these raffles that you have periodically throughout the year, where you get a classic Moog synthesizer. Sometimes it's a mini Moog, sometimes it's a poly Moog, sometimes it's a we had the memory Moog, didn't we, from the name's gone completely out of my head, but anyway, yeah. So you've got a brilliant raffle, and it's just landed just at the right time, so people can buy tickets, and we need people to buy as many tickets as possible, because A, the money supports you guys, and B, they stand a much better chance, the more tickets they buy, of winning this absolutely amazing, let me just bring this up onto the screen. It's a classic mini Moog, which has been signed by who is, in my eyes, an absolute deity. Peter Gabriel has signed this one, and it's tell us a little bit about this mini Moog. What year is it? Where did it come from? Is there any sort of history behind it? And how you got this incredibly elusive man to put his moniker on the back?
So this is a vintage mini Moog. It's been fully restored by Kent Spong. We got very, very lucky.
Give us a wave, Kent. There you go. He's had his hands on it.
Yes, he has. Thank goodness.
I washed them first.
It's forgive me. I'm a little out of sorts because of my travels, but it's number 85 something.
I've got
it's on that blog, actually. There's a picture.
8538 is the serial
Thank you.
number.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it was 38 or 58. So 8538. And it was manufactured at the Williamsville plant in likely the mid to late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
What more can I say? It's a fully restored vintage mini Moog.
Yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely excellent cosmetic and technical condition, thanks to Kent.
Yeah, I mean, you call him the lauded restorationist. It's not gone to his head much, that.
Just Google me, please.
He probably already knows that.
We tell him all the time.
Yeah.
I thought I was only stating the obvious. As far as Peter goes, I can't reveal my sources, but
of course,
we do have a wonderful friend and supporter of the foundation who
I think I might know who that is.
Right. Has a close connection to
yes.
Peter musically. And
yes. It's not a slow connection, is it?
I'm sorry?
It's not a slow connection. It's more...
It's not a slow connection.
No,
That's
no
right.
clues.
And that's it.
I see what you did.
So, and we got very lucky that Peter said yes.
Yeah.
So he and his team have just been great to work with. It was a little bit of a challenge logistically, but we made it work. And by we, I mean we were lucky to have the help of not only Kent. Kent not only assisted with restoration, but also with the logistics over in the UK. And then we had other needs that came up, and Andrew jumped in and helped with those. So I would say there's a very strong PSN vibe going on with this raffle.
I mean, I was blissfully unaware of all of this going on until like the last minute. But I just want to say on behalf of PSN, thank you for allowing us to help you. And I'm sure Kent and Andrew would have just done this anyway. But also thank you for allowing us to shoot some video footage for you. And that is out there at the moment. We released a video earlier this week. I'm just going to quickly just throw a couple of seconds. The video's only about 3 minutes long anyway. So this is the promo video, one of a number of videos that we've taken. He says, can't find it. No, there it is. Right, let's have a quick look.
ProSynth Network have been ardent supporters of the Bob Moog Foundation and Michelle's work to sustain the foundation as a tribute to her father's name and all he did to essentially bring about what is contemporary music as we know it. All electronic music stems from this beastie, the Model D.
But there you go. If you want to watch the video, it's on YouTube. And we've got another video that we're going to put out next week because we're going to try and stretch them out to keep the momentum going. And that one's going to be, and I apologise in advance, it's going to be Andrew playing the Mini Moog. But it's going to be this trend of no talking videos. So it's just going to be Andrew just playing. So you can get to hear this, and it sounds incredible. I mean, it's a Mini Moog. It's bound to sound incredible. But
it does.
It's had that guy over there's hands over it, and so it's immaculate. It is. And then we're going to do a special one on our Patreon channel where Andrew, I think you sort of like take us on a tour and tell us what all the various things do and stuff. It's a bit more of a detailed overview, isn't it?
And we might do a little thing around it with Kent and you adding to that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll work something.
We'll work something. Yes. And we'll make that as a Patreon exclusive for a little while so that our patrons can do that. But throughout that video and throughout the descriptions underneath, we are constantly asking, begging even, that you buy raffle tickets. So the raffle tickets are available. So in your money, they're like $25 for one.
Yes.
But you can buy bundles, right?
Yes.
So what kind of discounts do you get if you buy a bundle?
It's 25 for one, 5 for 100, 12 for 200, and 35 for 500.
There you go. So 35 tickets, 35 chances of you not only winning this wonderful instrument, but also supporting and helping the BMF and the Moogseum get back on their feet and get through this really crucial period. I cannot tell you. I really don't want to think about it, but I cannot tell you how devastating it would be to our community and the wider synthesizer community and the cultural community if Michelle's work didn't carry on because of this. It is vital. I've been very privileged. Michelle and I have spoken many, many times, and I've been very lucky that Michelle has shown me some of these very unique artifacts that she has in the archive that aren't on public display. And there are some absolutely amazing things in there. They need preserving, they need archiving, and they need looking after so that we can all benefit from it. And of course, the other thing that you do, which is something that I really am very sort of into, is your school, the sound school, where you teach young people about the science of sound using electronic instruments. Is just fantastic. So we need to keep you going, and the best way to do that, and it's mutually beneficial, is to buy a raffle ticket, right?
Yes. Yes, these raffles really are a major source of funding for us. I can't overstate how important they are. And just know, for every ticket you purchase, we are so grateful. And I will just share personally that our online store, I have it connected to my phone so I can see when orders are coming in. Mm-hmm. And during raffle time, every time an order comes in, which is a lot, I just say a silent thank you for every single purchase. We don't take them for granted. Mm-hmm. And they are put to excellent use, just supporting our 3 projects. And if I can just reiterate what Rob said, we've been at this for 18 years. Well, officially 18 years, not counting the year I spent as a volunteer in my basement right after my father passed away. And I don't think any of us should ever take for granted that the Bob Moog Foundation exists.
Exactly.
It is not going to continue to exist. Of course, without our hard and careful work, but also without the support of people from all over the world.
Yeah.
So thank you in advance to everyone who has already supported the raffle, and to those of you thinking about it, please buy a raffle ticket or a bundle of raffle tickets, and know that they're going to the funding is going to excellent use in helping us sustain a shocking setback, but one that we are resilient enough to get through with the proper funding.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people can't buy a raffle ticket for whatever reason, they can still go to the online store and purchase books, T-shirts, all this other stuff as well, and all of that will help you too, right?
Well, yes, of course. And there's also just donating. At some point, if now is not the time that you can support us, the donations are always appreciated. And we also have memberships where you get certain perks with, and those are always available as well.
Awesome
and
stuff.
Here's the thing: the educational resources that you've created, which are available to the world, they matter. And if you're thinking about buying tickets, buy tickets for someone else. Buy them for your local school. Yeah. Buy them for people who don't necessarily watch this and participate in these things, but who would love it. The mini Moog is the journey of a lifetime. You start there, and it takes you on a journey into all sorts of areas. I know people that started out in synthesis that have gone on to astrophysics, they've gone on to forensics, they've gone on to medical school. The workflows really matter. So buy tickets. Buy tickets for your school, for your college, for your friends, for your family. Just buy tickets and support the foundation. We really need it to carry on. We need to help. We need to dig deep and help.
Absolutely indeed.
Yeah, and I might just add that one of the things that is part of our strategic plan is to really increase our online presence and be able to offer more educational material through our websites. So we just have to get there, but that is definitely something that we value very highly, as Bob did.
Yeah, absolutely. You can, of course, donate at any time to the Bob Moog Foundation at this very link right here. You can also become a member of the BMF, which is a really cool way of supporting. And the online store is right there, Shop BMF. And as I said, you can go to the moogfoundation.org website, where you'll find the link directly to the raffle there to win this vintage mini Moog, restored by Kent Spong, signed by Peter Gabriel. Yeah, and raffle is open now. You can buy your tickets now. And the closing date and time for the raffle is October 28th this year at midnight Eastern Standard Time. That's midnight, or in, of course, America, so Eastern Standard Time, October 28th. For those of us who live on this side of the pond, the prices. This is what I love about what you've done here is you have your website, or the service that you use reevaluates the price for local currency, so it makes you know exactly what you're spending here. So for those of us on this side of the pond, it's £20 for one ticket. It's just £78 for 5 tickets. 12 tickets is £156. 35 tickets is a mere £389. And when you consider that buying 35 tickets is going to greatly increase your chances of winning this thing, and put that up against the cost of what it would cost you to buy this instrument, which I'm probably going to say is I don't know, what's a mini Moog of that vintage worth nowadays? Anyone?
8.3.
Yeah, so 8,000.
Yeah, we have it valued at 7,500.
There you go. So I mean, it's a fraction of the price, and it's going to be signed by one of the greatest musicians, not just of our time, but of any time.
I didn't sign it. I told you I didn't sign it.
I bet you have, though. I bet you've signed it on the inside. You've probably left a smutty little message or something.
Oh, yeah, listen, I noticed there was something on the back, so I've just cleaned it up, because
Somebody scribbled something on the back, yeah.
Is that not right?
Yeah. Yeah, so just go and buy a ticket. If you can only afford one ticket, it doesn't matter. That's one more ticket and some more pennies in the coffers.
Or a donation. Yeah, £5 if you got it, anything.
There's loads of great stuff. Even if you just want a coffee mug, look at that.
It does, all adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. And nobody in our community right now needs help as much as Michelle does with her organisation. And we've got to give a shout out to Craig, who has been in the chat I saw earlier on, and of course Destiny as well. You've got a great team of people behind you, and I'm positive that you will come through this, and we'll speak to you again. Maybe, well, hopefully we'll speak to you again before this time next year. But this time next year, we'll look back on this and we'll chuckle and we'll go, yeah, that was a scary time, but we got there. So yeah, fingers crossed. But lots of love to you, Michelle. Thank you ever so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. And I do also just want to say hi to Dan and Mitchell, and also point out that both Cherry Audio and Acoustica before them have been supporters of the Bob Moog Foundation, and we are deeply grateful for that support, as we are of everyone else. We don't take the kind of support that we have from people all over the world for granted. We are honored by it. And we really dedicate ourselves every day to make sure that we're earning that support.
Yeah.
So thank you to all of you at PSN, at Cherry Auto, who have supported us, and out in your audience as well.
And thanks, Michelle. We're getting information on the raffle up on our social media right away, and we'll be getting it out in our newsletters and doing everything we can.
Oh, thank you. That's hugely helpful.
Thank you. Anyone that's watching tonight, if you have a platform, no matter how small, if you have a little website or you have a YouTube channel, just put something up there and just advertise this. Get the message out there that they could win an awesome machine, but also they could support one of the most important historical archives and sources of education in our community anywhere in the world. And it's Bob, None of us would be here, as we've said often enough, without your father, and so we must try and help you. So we will do everything that we can. Much love to you and to your family. I hope that Joseph is well, and because he was at home, wasn't he?
Alone.
Yeah. Wow. During the whole thing, that must have been scary. But you're all good, and that's great to hear.
Yes, we're all good. We're very grateful.
Excellent.
Our focus now is restoring the museum and trying to help our community here as well. So,
very quick question from Keith. Are ticket numbers limited on this raffle, by the way?
No, they're not.
There you go.
Buy
as many as you can.
That's right.
Good question, Keith. Thank you very much indeed. Babs, where is it? There it is. Got wrong message. It was lovely hearing Michelle speak at AES on Wednesday.
Wonderful.
I hope you had a great show there as well, because I know you kind of flew in from Europe, went to New York, and so yeah. Honestly, this your air miles must be amazing.
I was there yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, your air miles. I dread to think must be wonderful. All right, Michelle. Well, I know you're a busy lady, so we'll let you go. But listen, thank you ever so much, for coming on the show, and for letting us help you in any way that we can. Guys, if you've got a message from Michelle before we say goodbye, anyone?
Yeah, I have.
Go on.
Yeah, was it rhymes with Voog? Weird. Why have you put a U in it? You don't put it in colour. Why have you put it in that? No, here it goes. Here's the thing.
I shouldn't have let him loose,
I know. Right, a message to all the people who live in the UK, England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, yeah, and the other part of Ireland that isn't part of England, and Europe. Whatever. And all that lot. Buy as many tickets as you humanly can, right? And there's a very, very specific reason for this, right? I'm paying for the shipping of this to the recipient winner, insured. So if it's closer, it's better for me. Do you understand? Because we're not shifting the cost to the foundation. They're in enough shite as it is.
Well, you know what the answer is?
So buy as many as you can.
Yeah, buy as many, but pick my ticket out, and then I just go and pick it up.
Yeah, okay.
There you
That's
go.
cool. All right.
Job done.
Well, petrol money.
I bet it's one of those competitions that because we're involved, we're not allowed to enter. That's what it is. Yeah.
But we can still buy tickets.
But we can still buy. And of course, I'm going to buy tickets.
Or just
Absolutely.
donate
Buy
instead.
tickets, but-
Or that.
Just donate
Anyway.
instead.
Just donate.
Give us your money. Right, Michelle, I will let you go. Thank you ever so much indeed for coming. We hope
you.
we hope to see you again soon. The best of luck with the raffle. We will be keeping a very close eye on it. And so there'll be more video content coming next week and then the week after. And we'll try and keep this buzz going and get you as much as we can. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for giving us time on the show. And
No, anytime.
Dan and Mitchell, thanks for sharing your time. Congrats on the new release.
Of course,
Yeah.
thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Mokusa, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care. See you soon.
See you later, baby.
Bye-bye. And there she goes. Oh, I get a little bit emotional during that because it is such a. I can't imagine the stress and the anxiety. But she does such amazing. Well, she and Craig and Destiny, they all do amazing work, and it really must be supported, and they must be able to carry on. So we in any way you can help, please do. Brilliant. And if you have any questions about donations or anything like that, about the raffle, by all means get in touch with us. You know how to get in touch with us, or drop the BMF a line. You'll find all their contact details on their website. And yeah, just go ahead and do that stuff. Right. Okay. So that's basically this is the first half of the show gone. We've got some more stuff to talk about, more new and exciting stuff, and we'll kick that off by showing a little promo video.
Cherry Audio's Atomika is inspired by the Polyvox analog synthesizer, manufactured in the Soviet Union in the 1980s. Designed with original methods and local components, it's highly regarded for its bold and eccentric tone. In collaboration with renowned DSP engineer Mark Barton, Cherry Audio has revived this synth's unique sound with Atomika. Original features such as loopable envelopes remain, but we've expanded the filter design with new controls that extend Atomika's twisted palette. We've boosted Atomika from duophonic to 16-voice polyphony and added additional waveforms of the LFO. Velocity, tracking, and aftertouch are now at your fingertips, along with pitch and mod wheel response, and glide options missing from the original hardware. We've added a second panel with an arpeggiator and 4 studio-quality effects with modulation, phaser, flange chorus, echo, and reverb. And for true believers, the panel can be optionally set to its original labels. Atomika also has extensive MIDI mapping and over 350 professionally crafted presets, each designed to showcase its distinctive sonic capabilities. With its inspiring immersive UI and more, Atomika is a must-have for any music producer. Cherry Audio's Atomika, the sizzling sounds of a Soviet synth as it's never been heard.
So I've got to say, guys, you've done it again. You've pulled another one out of the bag that we didn't quite see coming. Although I tell a little lie because you've not been keeping this particularly secret over the last few months.
We had the shirts.
The shirts at NobCon. We saw you, but it was subtle. It was very subtle. I think a bunch of people pretty much figured it out. Atomika. It's a Polyvox. I don't know what the term is. Is it an emulation? It's an enhanced version. It's inspired by. It looks like it. Sounds like it. I've never actually played the original hardware, but Mr. Goldstein, I do believe that to your right, you actually have one. Oh, listen to that filter. It's amazing, isn't it? It's great. Come on then, Dan. Spill the beans. Why the Polyvox? Or maybe, just tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind doing this.
Yeah, why the Polyvox? It's the perfect Cherry Audio instrument. It's rare. It's incredibly unique. It's just not something most people get their hands on, and it's a wild instrument. The sound of it, the instability of it. It's just incredibly unique. We've wanted to do it for a long time. The way this came about is at the beginning of this year, I challenged Mark Barton to do the Polyvox. He's tried in the past to do the Polyvox filter, and he was not successful. And I knew that he had it in him, so I gave him the challenge. We actually bought a Polyvox and sent it to him, and gave him all the time he needed to figure it out. He ended up breadboarding the circuit to understand it. The filter is unlike any other filter. There are very, very few parts that make up the filter, partly because there weren't a lot of parts available in the Soviet Union. There's no capacitor. There's no obvious capacitor in the filter circuit. It doesn't have a standard op amp. It's made with this weird programmable op amp, which was sort of brilliantly used in a way that it wasn't really designed to be used, and that creates this filter which is unlike anything that I would say exists in the land of synthesizers. And it just called to us. It needed to be done. I think it hasn't really been done by any other major company because no one has really understood how to do it. And it took Mark Barton, who's just a genius at walking that line between analog and digital, to figure out how to model it properly. And then one day I got a call from him and he was all excited and he figured it out. And we were able to build the rest of the instrument, and it just came out. It's just a dream come true. It's absolutely a beast.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It's basically a synthesizer that was born out of or created in an environment where there weren't plentiful components. I'm assuming that the designers of this probably didn't have access to many Western instruments at the time because of just the way things were politically over there. So were they making this up as they went along, or did they have inspiration from anywhere? And the internal design, was that simply something that was born out of necessity, that this is all we've got, but we want to make a sound from all of these bits?
So it was actually illegal to import things from the West. It was illegal, and they would smuggle in mini Moogs, and they would take them apart, and they would study the circuitry and try to figure out what made them tick. The odd thing about it, so to answer your question, all the good electronic parts, everything with tight tolerances went to the military. So they had parts, but they were not generally great parts. And that one of the things that we learned in studying our Polyvox is that between instruments, between any two Polyvox, there can be a wide range of distortion, of the weird behavior that comes from the filter. And so rather than try to emulate any one given instrument, we ended up putting a bunch of extra controls on the front panel. So you can make it a little cleaner or a little nastier. You can make the filter more or less overdriven, just to emulate what we've actually seen out there in the wild. But in the case of this filter, I think the designer, Vladimir Kuzmin, I think he was experimenting. One of the odd things is people will say that he used this programmable op amp because they didn't have access to standard op amps, but that's not actually true. There are standard op amps inside the Polyvox. Mm-hmm. So I think that this was an original filter that they were trying to design. They were trying to build it out of the very few parts that they did, because parts were hard to get and expensive. And I think he kind of stumbled upon this really odd filter. My understanding is he wasn't happy with it because he wanted it to be smooth and creamy like a mini Moog, and it came out all sort of weird. But of course, it's that weirdness that we all love about it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. You talked about the components and the fact they didn't have any caps, and they were using this programmable op amp. Were the components that were used only available there. They weren't Western at all. And in which case, how have you been able to duplicate that?
They were Soviet parts, but in the case of things like the programmable op amp, there are modern day parts that are essentially the same thing. But of course, we had the actual Polyvox to study as well. Yeah, and you need, that was one of the mysteries. You need a capacitor to make a filter. It's necessary. It's the capacitor that causes things to get rounded out. And Mark was baffled for a while about how they made a filter without a capacitor. And in the end, he discovered that there is a capacitor, a little tiny capacitor inside the programmable op amp chip. It's a couple pins of the chip. And it's all part of the genius of this filter that they were able to use this tiny built-in capacitor in the chip to avoid having to put a normal capacitor into the circuit to save that money and to save those parts. And it works surprisingly well, considering how it's not the part you would ever choose to build a filter with today.
Yeah. So that's the internals, Mitchell. What about the externals, the interface, the design? You know, did you come up against any challenges? I mean, it's a fairly utilitarian design, very functional. But you know, what struggles did you have replicating that?
It was a pretty difficult one to do. I'm sorry, I have lots of sunlight blazing in.
No,
now.
okay.
Hard to
we can
control.
see.
Okay.
Nice.
The challenge of this was, you know, the stock instrument is pretty simple, but obviously we added stuff. And the thing that's weird about it, and probably you would never really look at it this way unless you had to do a design of it or variation of it, is that the controls are really proportionally large if you look at them. Like the legends around the knobs are, I'm sure they just did it to be stylistic, but they're really big. The switches, those white paddles, are also, as switches go, really big. So if you look at the way the labels of the knobs are arranged, they take up a ton of space. Uh-oh, it's going nuts now. I have to close a blind. I'll do that in a minute. Yeah. So yeah, it was really challenging to do because as soon as I started adding things, because you know there were a bunch of things we wanted to add, it became a really tough thing of trying to fit them in, make them look natural, keep the basic kind of layout that the original had, without stuffing things in and having things too close. So that was difficult. I should definitely give credit to Mal Meehan, who did the amazing 3D version of it and all the 3D knobs and stuff, because my version was flat, as they usually are. So it was difficult. And then if you look at page 2, which maybe you want to show that, we added a page 2, an effects and arpeggiator section. And I don't know if you're... Oh, okay, you're not on the actual thing, but it should show it. Yeah, there we go. So, again, the challenge here was to really keep this looking authentically like the first page, this completely separate page with effects, without having to subdivide it and make the sections shaped funny and look like Tetris. So we were able to add all these effects, which really, really expands it and is really nifty. And then on top of that, we added an extra LFO. If you zoom over to the left a little bit, you can see where it says effects modulator. That it's identical to the normal LFO, except that it says effects modulator instead of modulator, and that is completely independent of the regular synthesis LFO. And that is routable. If you zoom down a little bit, go down a little bit, you can see in each effect there's an effects modulator knob, and for each one you can essentially replace or double up the internal LFO of the phaser and the flange chorus. So you can use that LFO, which has a lot, you can use the external LFO, which has a lot more variations and things you can do. You can modulate the delay time, and you can modulate the reverb effects mix, which, like for example, if you put a square wave on reverb, I'm sorry, the decay time, I'm not remembering right. If you put a square wave on decay time, it sounds pretty wild. So there's a lot of cool things you can do that really expand it.
Yeah. And also, as you mentioned in the video, Have we got an image of that here somewhere? Yeah, you've got the Cyrillic.
Yeah, the other thing we should mention, is the Cyrillic text, which was maybe the hardest thing of the whole thing, because I can't just type in Russian because I don't speak it and I don't have a font. So the short version of this is, I initially tried doing it using like Google Translate, but I didn't account for context, which had to be right and make sense.
Of course.
And I didn't account for abbreviations, because sometimes a word that's 4 letters in English is 14 letters long, characters long in Cyrillic. So long story short, we ended up finding a guy who works with us on the Akustica Mixcraft side. And he was very, very helpful in translating it and figuring out appropriate abbreviations and so forth. And I painstakingly made an alphabet of characters and moved all of them one at a time like a typesetter. Wow. And that took a very long time.
Amazing stuff. That's attention to detail. So tell us a little bit. So Mal did the 3D graphics, but Mark Barton, you've mentioned his name on some of your previous instruments, and his name is incredibly well known, certainly in the past couple of weeks, because of the videos he's been doing with Anthony Marinelli,
right.
Which is really cool. So Mark is, like you say, he's a genius, and he's done some amazing stuff. What does Mark bring to a project like this? Is it technical know-how? Is it DSP stuff? What's Mark's involvement?
Mark walks the line that very few people can walk. He started out as an analog engineer designing. He designed the Syndrum, the very first synthesized drum, at a time when no one knew how to do a synthesized drum, where you can hit a drum and have that velocity translate into filter response and pitch response. So he was designing instruments in the analog realm, but then he's also the guy that made the very first Macintosh talk. He wrote some of the very first speech synthesis software, and so he's been working with DSP for as long as home computers have existed. And so to be able to look at a circuit like the Polyvox filter circuit, like their oscillator circuits, these sort of weird to understand, unusual circuits, and then know how to translate that into DSP that has all that character and just gets things right. There just aren't that many people that can do that. We give, anytime there's a really unusual filter or really unusual instrument, like our GX80, like emulating the CS80 filter, which has to be perfect if you're going to make a CS80, we give that project to Mark, and he develops the DSP code, and then Mitchell and Mal and I build an instrument around that DSP, and it's a great partnership. It's something we love to do, an instrument a year with him, and he can just do things that really no one else can do.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's paying dividends. Of course, you guys, you just mentioned there, between all of you, you build these instruments, but of course, when you ship them, they've got to come with a bunch of sounds, and you've got, once again, you've assembled your crack team of sound designers, including Mr. Terrace, Mr. Dyson, Inhalt, I think has got some stuff on there, and you've really gone to town on that. Were there any particular challenges in designing the sound presets for this machine, because it is such a unique instrument?
Well, it's funny. The thing about the Polyvox, everyone knows it as this big, brutal, noisy thing. I think what surprised us is it can be really beautiful. Mitchell discovered that the bandpass filter can make beautiful string sounds. There's a lot of sonic territory. Yeah, you can do a lot with it. So the challenge, I think, for the sound design team was to really show off what was unique about this instrument, to make the big grinding basses, but also the beautiful fluttery pads and the things that are just unstable and unusual. I highly recommend the Snakes of Russia presets that come with it. They, I think, do a phenomenal job of showing off the grinding, aggressive sound of this instrument.
Yeah.
And we should probably talk about, Dan, the original was basically a monophonic synth that had a duophonic mode, which if you're familiar with duophonic, a lot of ARP instruments had it. It was sort of a primitive way of having polyphony where you could, the low key and the high key would play at the same time on each oscillator, but you still had a single filter and voice path. So it was kind of a limited polyphony thing, but Atomika has that. It has a standard mono mode. It has the archaic duophonic mode, which does some interesting things. And then we've got full poly as well with options for 4, 8, and 16 voice polyphony. So getting back to what Dan was saying about the really pretty pads and more ethereal stuff, obviously that's more doable with poly sounds. So you combine that polyphony with the effects that do a whole lot, and you can really get those, the choirs and the weird, unusual pads and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's got some really. I was just going through the presets, and it's got some really surprising sounds in there, and then some really amazing, gnarly. That filter, it's very unique, and I can't compare it to the hardware because I've never been fortunate enough. But somebody who might have been fortunate enough to, or unfortunate enough to handle the hardware, is our very own Gent Spong. From your perspective, sir, I know what you're going to say. Thank heavens that somebody has produced a software version of this, because it means you don't have to fix all the old ones again. But when it comes to fixing these, how many do you get many of these through?
I've had about maybe 20.
Yeah.
Over the years.
Oh wow.
They were really, really popular about 10 years ago. Every bugger wanted one, and they started to get fetched silly money. And of course, they'd come in. Richard would buy them in or whatever, and he'd bring them around and say, "Hey, I've got another Polyvox for you." And he'd go, "Oh, thank you, Richard. What would I do without you?" It was really interesting because obviously all the ICs are in Russian. If memory serves, I think the KTs were the transistors, was it? And the KPs were the so you had the KP series, which was the ICs. And thank God I had a DSI chip checker, because you take this thing like a KP 4040RS or whatever, and you whack it in, and it goes, oh, it's a CMOS Logic 4051. Oh, I've got them in stock, and then put the new chip in. Right. So but it was almost like the ICs, a lot of the components were in it. You know when they used to talk about the Cold War and everything like that. It's literally like somebody was sneaking in, the plans.
Yeah.
And they go, this is how they make this particular AC. Okay, we copy these, yeah, literally.
So Mexican Russians.
Yeah. Let's go. We have tacos after, yeah. And so these ICs were like identical, pin locations identical to Western ICs as well. But they did put the Russian legends on them and stuff like that. Which, the first one I worked on was, oh wow, was that an adventure? It was literally like walking into a wardrobe and wow, it's this whole new world of the way they were doing things. Yeah. I think it was one of the few synths that I can think of that works on, I think it's 12.5 power rails, isn't it? Plus and minus 12.5 volt. Why 12.5 volt?
So what's really interesting, again, we often come back to this, but working in constrained systems where, being either deliberately or through circumstance constrained to using whatever you have is often a good thing, and in this case very much so, because they found a way to make things that don't normally work in this manner. They found a way of making them make the filters, etc. What was that like for you? When you've got the first one or two in, you're looking at it going, what the hell's going on here?
Well, yeah. Well, you look for a suitable counter to start bashing your head off. Essentially, that's what you do. See, the designs, they're unusual and they're kind of not unusual at the same time. But definitely the way they worked with what they could get is why it produced the unique sound that it produces, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, if they had access to everything, it'd be like, oh, it's another Juno 60 or whatever, you know. So, yeah, it was it's one of those, you know, little white unicorns that comes along now and again. And people either loved the sound of them or hated the sound of them.
Yeah.
Like most keyboards, I suppose. Most synths, it's like that, isn't it? You got the loves them and hates them.
Did you see many of these back in the day in studios that you were working in at all, or were they just an unknown quantity?
They were pretty much an unknown quantity. I heard of them and I saw bands that had them, but I never actually worked with one. But I remember, probably along with Mel, going into various shops, well, primarily the Denmark Street into Argent's, and I saw there was a guy there that had a big modular system, the Poly something, can't remember what that was, big Poly
Fusion.
Polyfusion, yeah. But he also had a Polyvox. He also had this Polyvox there, and it was just it was almost like he had a whip and a chair, and he was kind of down, trying to tame this thing. It was so raucously raw. But actually, and what I've found since I've been playing around with with your emulation of this, your version of this Atomika, I've managed to find ways to tame it and make I've got the most beautiful harp sort of sound that's just wonderful, and it just feathers away beautifully. I love this plugin. I love it. Absolutely. When are you going to do a bad one, Dan and Mitchell?
It's on the list for next
We're planning it. Yeah. We should talk about the filter a little more, actually.
Yeah.
Can we paint the filter a little more?
A few minutes.
And this is Mark's thing, really. Mark added a few controls because the original was, really straightforward. You'd have your cutoff and resonance, and the original had low pass and band pass modes. Good, but Mark actually added high pass, notch, and peak. So notch, you can do kind of the phasery things, and the peak mode can be really screamy. It can get really aggressive in a kind of slightly different flavor. High pass obviously gives you more colors, and then he added a couple of controls. There's 3 controls. There is a starve control, which I don't want to quote this. Mark's gonna take my head off.
He's in the chat. He's in the chat.
I believe it is a kind of starving it for voltage, the op amp, but don't quote me on it, and Mark will all caps me in a second in the chat. But I know what it does. You can get a number of effects. It really changes the sound of the filter. So it's kind of anytime you're fooling with the filter, it's really worth it to play with that starve knob and see what it does. Yeah. If the resonance is up, it can get this really bubbly character where literally it go bloop, 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 bloop. That's exactly what it sounds like. But it'll get this odd bubbly sound, and it just changes the character altogether. So that's a really nifty addition. There is a filter drive which does more like what you think it does, although it tends to almost act the opposite the way you might expect sometimes. So there's that, and then there's an amp drive control which controls your VCA drive, and again these all just give you more flavors. So it's like getting the Polyvox crazy filter, but with all these different ways to get all these different colors. And it gets into what Andrew was talking about, where like when you're in poly mode, you can get really pretty things that you didn't expect, where it's not crazy overdrive. So,
and that's
I don't want people to.
That's a lot to do with the level, the gain structure through, isn't it?
Yeah. The filter itself, the actual filter circuit is really sweet and surprisingly clean. The sound that we associate with a Polyvox comes from overdriving that filter, overdriving the VCA. There's a lot of overdriving going on inside the instrument. And as I said earlier, different Polyvox will have different levels of that. So we put those front panel controls on there to really sort of let you tailor, from a little bit clean to extremely dirty. That starve is is starving. It's actually that programmable op amp gets starved for current, and it's interesting. It responds. I'm not sure everyone realizes this, but it actually responds to the incoming audio. So the way that starve behavior responds depends on the notes that you're playing and changes as you play up and down the keyboard.
And the level of the both the oscillators and or the noise that you've got, those
all of it. Yeah. It's actually responsive. And this is just a defect or a side effect of the weird filter circuit. Even in our plugin, it's worth noting that even if you turn starve down all the way, you're never turning it off. It's always part of the circuit. It's part of the Polyvox sound. But in Atomika, you can enhance that and turn that up to pretty wild levels.
Yeah, well, it's a brilliant achievement yet again. I mean, like you say, when are you going to produce a bad one? Hopefully never. But it was funny when that was mentioned. In unison, the chat exploded and said that Cherry Audio need to do the Timberwolf, and that could be the one. That could be the one. So there you go.
And then the other thing that Dan and I, well, it's been a hot topic around our parts, is as soon as it came out, a lot of people were like, well, how come you don't make a standalone of the filter? So that that's being tossed about. I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about, but it is
so
being...
that would be something we'd see in Voltage Modular, yeah?
I don't know. That's been discussed too,
Okay.
but no, when I say standalone, I
mean just like
might
a standalone
mean
plugin,
a VST/AU/whatever. But a voltage version is definitely possible as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We haven't decided.
Yeah.
And did you ever consider putting a compressor or a limiter in at the end of the signal chain? Because it gets pretty wild. I'm just wondering whether that was something that you thought about.
It's there, isn't it? No, I guess it's not. It's on every other keyboard we make. Dan, did we?
Mitchell's not always a fan.
I hate him.
Of having the limiter.
Dan loves
on
them. I
there.
hate them. Yeah, I just say turn it down. That's what the meter's for.
Yeah,
I tend to agree.
I will say this, and again, I feel like I'm repeating myself because I always say this, but this is where Mitchell just absolutely shines. We have added a significant amount to this instrument. We've made it polyphonic. We added a detunable unison mode. We added all these controls to the filter. We added several more filter modes, which I do want to point out. All those filter modes that we added are things that the original filter was capable of. These aren't new filters. We just sort of wired up the filter to make peak and notch and high pass. Yeah. We added, so all these controls plus all the effects and the arpeggiator and things like a resettable LFO and a syncable LFO and all this stuff. But when you look at that front panel, it still looks in every way like the original Polyvox. And how Mitchell is able to incorporate so much into the existing design and still have it feel like the original instrument is it always amazes me. So there's always a limit to things like adding limiter switches, and there's always more that we could add, but it's so important to us to keep the feel and the look and the flavor of the original.
I think what's really interesting as well is it reminds me very much of the modular way, the Euro rack or whatever way of doing things, in that every single part of the chain you have to get the gain structure just right, and you're constantly changing different parts of the chain to see what happens next, to see how far you can drive it or how much you need to pull it back, because each thing each bit of drive or volume passing through to the next thing fundamentally changes the character. It changes the volume on the two oscillators. Make an enormous difference to how the filter actually sounds. The band pass is just, at first you're thinking, well, what's it doing? And then you go, I found the sweet spot. That's what it's doing. So I love it for that, and I like the fact that you didn't put. I really like the fact that you didn't put a limiter, because you're forced to go back and play around to get it to where you want it. I think it's a great.
Yeah,
it's a great
we were
sounding
watching a competing synthesizer vidcast the other night, and the gentleman did a fabulous job, and that was good. But he was trying to match it to his real Polyvox. Oh, I'm sorry, I've gone so dark as the camera's changing. But the point being, I felt really bad for him because it's exactly what you're saying, Andrew. There's so many gain stages to mess with on ours, like to match it perfectly. I described it as herding cats. It's just like, trying to get that perfect.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so
else.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's why it's so interesting and unique. I mean, it really is. Is that I've not got another plugin that works in the same way. I've not.
Right back.
And as I said, you dial it back. You bring down the volume of the oscillators, and the thing can just shimmer and be beautiful. And that surprised us, honestly. The Polyvox is so well known as this brutal, big distorted instrument, and it certainly is that, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Well, you've done it again. You've delivered another great synthesizer, another unique software synthesizer at, of course, your standard, regular, amazing price of just $49 or 49 euros. It's staggering how you do that every time, but we love you for it. And congratulations to you, all, including Mal, who we must get on one day to tell us how he does it. These wonderful 3D images, and to Mark as well for all his input, and the rest of the gang. You've done a fantastic job, and we love you for it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Whilst we've got about half an hour left, I thought we would take a quick look at a few of the other bits of news. To preface this, unfortunately, we didn't get this information across to Dan or Mitchell, so their opinions will be formed on the spot if they want to offer them. By all means, you can abstain if you're not too sure. But we will just cover a few things. And the thing I did want to talk about most of all, it was the thing that really got me very, very excited at Synthfest. Was this wonderful, amazing piece of engineering, which is the Analog Solutions TC5000. It's just looking at it makes me all excited. It's just a wonderful thing when you see it in the flesh. Tom's instruments are very beautifully made, beautifully designed. From every angle. Even looking at it from the back with all the access panels with the big logos printed on. This isn't even a production model. This is a pre-production model. So as you can see, it's inspired by the ARP 2500, which was a gorgeous thing anyway. And Tom's vision for this was to not recreate, not clone the ARP 25 circuitry or the modules, although the visuals are very reminiscent, but all of the filter designs and the oscillator designs and the effects and all of this, these are all Tom's own designs that he has taken from previous instruments, and he's enhanced them, expanded them, squeezed them in, so that you've got a 2500 UI experience. Some of those modules are going to change. They're going to be additional modules. There was even talk when I said, will you be doing wings? And he said, yes, I might be doing wings. So, we are going to see, this grow. And the one thing that Tom always says, every time he brings one of these things, he's so humble that he never thinks these things are going to sell. And he said, I said, what made you do this? He said, I don't know, I just kind of liked it, but it probably won't sell. And then I said, but you said that about Colossus. It sold in relatively speaking, great numbers. Same with the Maximus. These things have to exist, even though they are very expensive. And this is, unfortunately, very expensive. Pre-orders are being taken now with an ETA towards the end of this year, possibly in January of next year. The deposit you have to pay to get on the waiting list is 5,000 British pounds, and you will then pay the balance of 17,000 British pounds. So it's a 22k instrument, and that doesn't include taxes or shipping. which of course on something like this needs to be very, very good. But it's just an amazing, amazing thing. Once the first batch have gone, you'll notice there the price will go up by another $3,000. So if you are in the market for one of these, now's the time. And there's only 4 left at that price. These are all hand-built, hand-designed by Tom in his shed at the bottom of his garden. And they're just things of absolute beauty. And I say the ART 2500 interface is one of the classic interfaces, and he's improved it by removing the sliders and using the pin matrices, which is a brilliant idea. Of course, Tom's got a lot of experience building those things. But it's a beautiful thing. We can't really spend too much time on this. We don't have any audio demos. It was playing at Synthfest. But there was no point grabbing that audio because of everything else that was going on. But just a kind of a quick whiz around the room on people's thoughts about this. Mitchell, I'm going to start with you, my friend. What do you think?
Okay, I love it. Because
your audio's gone again.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's just gone.
Gone.
Yeah. Let's go to Dan then. Whilst Mitchell, see if we can reboot that. What do you think about this, Dan? I mean, you're a massive synth nerd and collector.
It's so beautiful. Who wouldn't want that? I need a bigger house.
Well, if you buy one of these, apparently you can live inside it, so it doubles up.
I would love to hear it. It's just everything that is coming out of that company is just a dream come true. And boy,
stuff.
If it sounds as good as it looks, I'd love to have one.
Yeah.
Do you have me now?
Yeah,
that's
there you
better.
go.
Hurrah!
Okay.
Quickly, before it goes
good.
again, what do you think of this?
Okay, so what I want to talk about, it's super cool, and I would love to have one. And it looks like, those slide switches were known to be really crummy. Like there were crosstalk issues, and you can imagine they're just giant slide switches. Yeah. So it looks to me like with the pin matrix, you could, in theory, mult things. You could have multiple things going to a source in or out, which would seem to increase your flexibility quite a bit.
That's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first things that Dina said to me, because Dina woke up, which was around our lunchtime, and my phone just went ballistic, and so I had to go outside, and she says, "What's he done? What's he done with this?" And I said, "It's not, it's not the sliders. It's pin matrices." And she's like, "That's the best solution. That's absolutely the best solution." I went back to Tom, and Tom's like, "Wow, Dina likes this." And yeah, she loves this. She was almost quite emotional, I think, about the fact that her father's design has inspired something this far down the line. It's a great way of doing it. And I'd love to actually spend some time. I'm the classic non-modular guy, but this does interest me mainly because there are no cables involved, and you can see everything, and it won't get obliterated.
Exactly that.
And that's the thing I love. If you want to see something, if you want to sort of get, if you're not familiar with what a 2500 does and how it works, go and watch. There's an episode of Benji's Mean Tune show, which is on YouTube, and he spends about 25 minutes in one of those episodes patching his 2500, which of course has been through the hands of Mr. Spong. And it was an absolute revelation how he creates this patch on there. It's brilliant. Kent, what are your thoughts on this, briefly?
Yes. Brief enough?
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, Tom keeps doing this. He looks like he's sitting at home just drinking coffee and watching, Pointless or something, and then he suddenly walks in with another synth.
Nobody knew this was coming.
It's ridiculous the way he does, isn't it? So, yeah, there are definitely more patch point possibilities per module. Because I think the old ones were only 10-way by 8.
Yeah, these are 16 by 7.
Which were just metal bars, and you just sort of like click from one bar to the next sort of thing. And yeah, I mean it's going to be a lot quieter. I mean the 2500 is a beautiful synth, but when you consider its age and everything like that, the outputs were noisy, and crosstalk was like unreal. It sounded like Mitchell's audio interface most of the time. So if you pushed it too hard, yeah, I mean it's simple maths, isn't it? I mean, this thing's what, 22k. 2500 is about what, 122k.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Yeah,
it's a no-brainer. But the dot matrix is a genius move.
Yeah.
Mind you, try getting those slider panels now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You couldn't anyway, so not that you'd want them, to be honest.
Indeed.
But no, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
It is. Andrew, finally, you like this, don't you?
I've been a fan of the 2500 since Patrick Moraz, Story of I, Pete Townsend, Bob O'Reilly. Is it Bob O'Reilly? There are so, Stevie Wonder. There are so many people who use this, and I've always wanted one, and I got to play with one very, very briefly. And like Kent says, it was noisy and unpredictable, and like, if you don't take care of them, they're a pain. But I yearned and ached for it, and I've always thought, could I get one? It's just one of those unscratched itches that I've never managed to do. If I was going to buy one now, it would be this one. It would be this one, quite aside from anything else, because Tom makes some of the best modules and best sounding things on the planet, and his design around these things is always really good. So I'd know that I'd be getting something that would last for the next billion, till the end of the universe or thereabouts. I just love it. I love the workflow. I want to play with it.
Yeah. Me too. Anyway, so there you go. That is the Analog Solutions TC5000. I'll let you in a little secret. It's not so much of a secret. It was going to be called the Carp 2500 because obviously it's Tom Carpenter, and there was but two things. He didn't want to get people, thinking this was a 2500 clone, which it isn't, and also the carp is generally like a mid to bottom feeding fish, and he didn't want that kind of implication.
Marketing is hard.
Yeah, so TC, Tom Carpenter, 5000.
What?
What?
But you don't look at that and go, now, why am I thinking about bottom feeding fish? What the, where did you get that from?
I have no idea. But honestly, if you can get to see one of these and get to have a chat with Tom, it's a real pleasure. I've got
Behringer 55 over here. He looks like a seahorse.
It's more of a crayfish.
It might make sense if he made like the carp axe.
Yeah.
Or the carp 16-voice electric piano.
But isn't it interesting that he's taken the workflow concept and turned that into a new thing? It looks like the original, sort of. But it's a completely new beast using those workflows. I love that, and I can understand why Dean was so excited.
It was quite telling when I said to him on the Saturday morning, I said, come on then, tell me, about this. He said, look, it's all very well, using different filters or different oscillators to get the sounds that we want. We often overlook the way in which we interact with these things. And he said the UI of the 2500 has always been, in his opinion, one of the ultimate user interfaces. It's simple, straightforward, and it's powerful. And so that's what he wanted to replicate. And he said, that's what he's done with the Colossus. He's taken that Synthy 100 vibe, but it's all him behind there. But he's taken that workflow and that layout. Same with if you look at the layout of the Maximus, it's very much an interface that is designed for human beings to use as easily as possible. And so, he's done the same with this. So. Brilliant stuff, and I'm sure he will sell loads. In fact, we saw that picture earlier. I'm sure, I know things have been said and discussed between probably one of his best customers. So, but yeah, Ty literally.
Sorry, I didn't know Heston Blumenthal liked synths.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, after he's had a hard shift in the kitchen.
He's a chef. He's a chef over here.
After he's had a hard what?
Hard shift.
Oh.
In the kitchen. No, seriously, Ty was like Tigger. He was like this. He was like really excited because he didn't. Not even he knew it was there.
Like a fat duck.
Look at that. Indeed. Let's move on. Another software synthesizer. We've got 15 minutes. Let's just quickly have a quick chat about this. And this might be slightly orcs, as the kids say, but yeah, we'll take on the challenge.
I know it's
anyway.
coming. Yeah.
You know,
I know it's coming.
Yeah. This is new from Arturia. So here we are. This is Synth Synth without the E and then X, from Arturia. And of course, the reason, it might be slightly awkward is that Cherry Audio have done one of these as well, and it's a mighty fine version too. But as we said off air, there's something for everyone. This comes in at a high price point. Of course, Cherry Audio is a much more reasonable price point. There are slight differences between the two, not least in the sequencer section, of which the Arturia version has omitted the actual programmable sequencer part and has just focused on the arpeggiation part of that. But with that, don't want to be drawing comparisons or anything. And clearly, Dan Mitchell, if you would rather not say anything, completely understandable. But this is the latest in their suite of plugins. This will, I guess, join the V collection at some point in the next update. But it's a really pretty faithful recreation of the original. It's dual layer bitimbrel. It has, it replicates the oscillators and the filters. In fact, in the blurb, it says that they managed to find, was it the high pass filter or the low pass part, which wasn't in the original, but was capable of doing it. So they made it do it, or something along those lines. I really should have done my research.
It was part of the circuitry, but it had never been enabled. Never
been sort of used. So, and I like the way on the user interface, when you switch between layers, the illuminated elements around the controls change colour, so you know exactly kind of where you are. So it manages to keep it compact. They've added the pitch bend and mod wheel design to it instead of a joystick. But other than that, it's a pretty competent version of what is a well-regarded and quite rare Italian synth. I shan't be asking Kent about the oscillators because he's asked me not to.
No, we're not talking about it.
The arguments that have ensued about exactly what
we're not talking about it.
Okay,
I'm not talking about it.
I'll shut up.
Not talking about it.
Thoughts on this one? Is it a worthy addition to the V collection? Yes, it's 199 euros, so it's pretty expensive. Although if you've got V collection, you can pick it up for 99, so you get half price. Of course, that's still nowhere near the incredible value for money you get from the Cherry Audio version. Do we need another Synth? Is it nice to have, I don't know, competition in there? Go for it.
So if you've already got the V collection and you're using all of their interfaces and all of their effects, and it's a common route into bringing this into that system, if you're already familiar with it, then why wouldn't you? It's even with the deal, if you've got it, then it's twice as expensive as the Cherry Audio. In terms sonically, as far as I can tell, there is very little difference between them. Mm-hmm. I really like the original sequencer versioning in Cherry's version.
Yeah, that polyrhythmic capability is very.
That's one of the greatest and best things of it. It's a wonderful way to create new textures and sounds, and it's really good. So I like that about it. Honestly, it's going to be which system do you want to go with? Where do you want to go with this? I really like Cherry's version of it. And I can't see there's anything much wrong. And if you're in that universe, there's not much wrong with the. In fact, there's nothing wrong at all with the V version, except that it doesn't have the sequencer. And I'd miss that. But that does seem
like a bit of a glaring omission, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's a good, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's good to have competition out there and show off just how wonderful yours is at the price it is.
Yeah, indeed. Ken, have you got any thoughts on this other than
Yeah,
how the oscillator works?
Yeah, it's one of those keyboards, isn't it? Where it's famous for certain sounds, and
Of course.
and then the rest of it is sort of like in the wind. I think that, one of the people I think that used the Synthex to the ninth degree was Ulrich Schnaus. Used it to death, absolutely used it to death. It was on everything, and he got some very interesting sounds out of it. I mean, I've got one. I used one for about. I had it in the studio for about about 6 years. And you can get some nice sounds. You can get some nice sounds on it. So, but it was never one of those things that stood out. With any, like the Jupiter 8, like the Geno 60 and stuff like that. So, yeah. I mean, I'm just glad there's plugins of it now.
Yeah,
because it's a
absolutely.
bloody heavy lump.
Yes,
and
and
the one thing that people never say, they go, when you've got a Synthex in the studio, the noise.
Yeah.
Of that bleeding fan.
Yeah.
There you go. You don't get that with the software.
I tell you what, after 8 hours of that in your ear roll, when you turn it off, you're going, oh my God, thank God I've turned that off now. What a racket. It's like having a hairdryer going.
Indeed. Matt, Mitchell, Dan, did you want to comment on this? I mean, I completely understand it. Obviously, competitor, you've got to go for it.
Dan probably is like desperately like hoping I don't say anything dumb or offensive.
No, it's my job.
Well, no, I want to acknowledge, Andrew, thank you for saying you used the sequencer, because we were just talking about this the other day. Like we went to a fair amount of trouble. For those who don't know, it was 3 years ago that we made it. And so I don't remember the original sequencer that well, but I know it was really bad. It was like one of those things that like it was so bad, and if you have a DAW, there was just no point in doing it at all. So we weren't going to do the original sequencer. So we ended up making a completely original step sequencer for it that resembled it control-wise, but it really works completely differently and is much more of a step thing and does things that you wouldn't necessarily do in a DAW. So I'm really happy, because like I always thought, man, I wonder if anyone actually uses that, because that was a big, it was a lot of work for Dan. It was a fair amount of work for me. So I'm glad they're using. But it makes sense that Arturia didn't include the original sequencer, because it's just it's just crap. Yeah. So
no, I applauded you for doing that.
Yeah.
Because I used to try and use that sequencer.
Yeah.
And it was like trying to use a Memory Mode Plus, but blindfolded in an alley.
With boxing gloves
tied up in a bin.
All bad
literally tied up in a dumpster. You might as well have been. For the accuracy you got out of that bleeding thing is like. Yeah.
Anyway, Dan, did you want to have any words? Or are you going to be very diplomatic?
No, so the original sequencer is one of these. It was largely designed for real-time input, and then you have to hold down multiple buttons at the same time to do certain tasks, and it just doesn't lend itself well to a software plugin. As Mitchell said, we put the original sequencer also had a step edit mode that you could activate again with certain key presses, and we designed our sequencer around that. I did watch a video on the Arturia one. It's 4 separate arpeggiators that can be routed to the various levels or the various layers, and it's got all kinds of presets and things. I'm sure it's very cool, but the sequencer is, I think, a neat part of the Synthex when it's used well, and so it's a little bit of a shame that they couldn't, put it in there. We contrary to what people might think, we love anytime there's a new instrument out there for the public to use. Anything that gets these classic instruments into people's hands, whether it's ours or Arturia's or anybody else's, it's good for musicians. So no complaints here.
Here. Well said.
And it's way too long to discuss in 4 minutes, but there is a finite collection of big synthesizers that people want. So, I understand.
One last thought. I remember when I was playing with this at Mute Studio, and one of the things I used to do often with big synth with dual layer synths, like with the Jupiter and all those Jupiter 8, was I would do string patches where I would have the rosin, the bowing, on one layer, and then the string itself, the played sectional thing as a separate thing, and you could blend those and move between the blends to give you a really realistic thing. The Elka did that really well, and what I was really pleased with when I got yours was the ability to dial that back up again really quickly. The user interface on those things is really good, and the way that's been exposed, and I'm sure the same is, it's the same for the V as well, but the way it was exposed allowed me to get to that really quickly again, and it's just it's really nice to know that you can get that level of control really fast.
Yeah. Cool. So there we go. Got a couple of minutes left. Just going to fly through these. Arturi did actually release something new yesterday, which we'll literally just look at it. We'll maybe have a little chuckle and then move on. They released a new version of their Minilab 3 keyboard in mint green. So you can have this now in Arctic white, regular white, or mint green.
That's the color of my wife's car.
There you go.
That's not
perfect
mint.
Christmas present.
That's not mint.
Well, that's what they're saying.
That's
mint green.
That's
whatever.
Stagnant pond green. That
Swamp
is.
green.
No,
It's a
mint
little-
green is a much richer green than that. Come on.
Algae
Anyway,
green.
there you
Hate.
What else?
Hate.
Have
Ice
we got?
cream. That's mint
we
ice cream.
did. I don't. This now because this didn't come out. I know there was maybe a tease of this. I shan't play the video because we don't have time for it. But new from Ableton is the Ableton Move, which is kind of like a trimmed down version of Push. It's a standalone device that uses Ableton's instruments and other samples that you can put in. It's got its own speakers. It's got half of the grid going on there with lots of controls. Retails for $399. And then you can hook it up to your computer later on and mess around. It's quite feature cut down from the Push 3, which is an incredible piece of gear. But some people were criticising this because they said, well, the Ableton Note app, which you can get on your iPhones and iPads and stuff, is essentially what this does. But this is now kind of like in a box, so it's not really anything too original.
I'd love to be able to discuss this more fully next week. Can we
maybe we could
revisit
do that.
this? 'Cause
Yeah, we can.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's for $399. It's not a bad price considering
It's
that
not bad at
the
all.
Push. Mike Metley wins joke of the week because he said, "What's their next one? Is it the Turn? Because there's a Bukes book called Push Turn Move or Push Move." So they think they may be going with a naming convention there. But yes, it's a cool thing. Very nice there. And the last thing that we should briefly mention, and maybe we'll look at this in a bit more detail, is the new thing from Roly, which is called the Roly Airwave, which is a gesture control. It's basically a D-beam on acid. It's this little thing that you see, well, little thing, it's quite a big thing that stands at the back there and has a bunch of infrared cameras that can very accurately map the position of your hands, and they are pitching this as a new platform. This is one of the first things to use this new platform that will allow you to use it as a teaching tool. So because it can see your hands, it knows what notes you're playing, it looks at your position, your posture, and all that kind of stuff. But also you can voice control it, so it's using a lot of language models. You can actually talk to it in a very pretty natural way, and it will respond back to you. And of course, it's a gesture controller, so for people who like waving their hands around in the air like they just don't care, affecting their filter sweeps and all that kind of stuff, you can do it with this. I was invited to the launch of this on Tuesday, but I was so tired after Synthfest and had so much work on that I skipped it. And to be honest, I'm not too worried that I did. I know when we talked about this before it was actually announced, you said the mere existence of the word educational in the description means that it probably wasn't going to be wonderfully exciting, and I think you were kind of right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just my problem with it is, I mean, I've got no problem with it, but it's again another one of those controllers that make you take your hands off the keyboard. And so, as for me, as a two-handed player, it's doing the modulation gestures that the Roly keyboard does
with the keyboard
anyway. So
yeah.
So it's not, although they show it with a Roly, you don't really need to be with Roly. But when you're obviously with a different synthesizer, then yeah, sure, you know, and the rest of it. But you know, it's like, oh, you know, yeah.
I mean,
I can. Yeah, it's got the Roly name on it, but I don't think it's really designed to work with Roly keyboards. It's actually designed to work with other.
Well, they're marketing it with this new thing called the Piano M, which is this small, you know, like a Roly Blocks type thing with the illuminated keys, and so you know, the lights on the keys will work with the lights on the app, and so on and so forth. You do need a tablet with this for a lot of the stuff because it runs on an iOS or on Android tablets. But yeah, maybe we'll come back and have a look at this in a bit more depth next week. But quickly, guys, Mitchell, Dan, are you into this kind of gestury kind of thing, or are you like Kent that you think, you know, you've got a keyboard, you've got aftertouch and expression pedals and all that kind of stuff?
Personally, I'm such an old, you know, grumpy man about this stuff. I like a keyboard. I don't even like aftertouch. I don't like poly aftertouch. I don't like MPE. None of it. Because I like Gary Newman, you know? Like,
well, yeah.
You know, I like a flock of seagulls, you know?
So,
I mean, I say it half jokingly, but like, I kind of feel like all the music I want to make can be made without any of that stuff. And maybe I'm just completely have my head in the sand, and one day I'll wake up. But that's me. But it's all cool. People love it. I know they do. I'm not putting it down. It's totally cool for other people.
There have been several attempts to do gesture-based MIDI stuff. My team worked on a product for the Leap Motion, which was a little box that you put on your desk.
That's right. Yeah,
I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
Above it, and it always seems like it's going to be really exciting. There's a phenomenon called, I think, monkey arms, where when you have your arms like this for 5 minutes, it's exhausting.
Right.
And people can't, you know, you see that in movies. But in reality, it's not a very comfortable way to work. And so there are some very, very cool things that you can do with that kind of gesture control. But historically, it hasn't been practical. So I don't know. I'd love to see someone do it. I think it's exciting technology, but you're right. It means taking your hands off the keyboard and kind of floating them in the air, and that's not as much fun as it might seem.
Yeah, and as Matt points out, it's only sorry, wrong one. It's only a matter of time before somebody
hand-shandy modulation to the filter.
Yeah, genital gesture control. Somebody will do it. Somebody will do it.
Thunderbirds are go.
Yeah, Thunderbirds. Yeah. So yeah, it retails the Airwave itself retails for £249. You can buy it as a bundle with the Piano M, either as a single unit or a double unit. There's also a subscription to the Roly Learn platform, which is £99 a year. So, you know, we're into the whole world of subscription stuff there. It's an interesting thing, but we'll look at it maybe in more detail next week. And it's always interesting to see what Roly are up to. Anyway, that brings us, we have shot over time, but we've had an absolutely jam-packed show. So first of all, many thanks, as always, for coming back on. We love having you guys on. Thank you for coming on again. To Dan and Mitchell from Cherry Audio, big round of applause. Thank you very much. Congratulations on the release of Atomika. And will we see you before Christmas?
Christmas is coming. Carol. Yeah, I think you will.
Oh, that's good. We always like that. We shan't ask you why, but we'll get you in. So great. Listen, great to see you guys. Thank you so much.
In the bag.
Oh no, don't.
It'll take 2 or 3 days to do.
And also, can I just big shout out to Robert, who does all of the kind of liaising between us and sorts all us out with the information well in advance, so we can talk about these things from a sort of position of authority. But yeah, thank you to Robert. I haven't seen him in the chat, so he must be busy somewhere. And yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Can we also say a massive thank you to Michelle for coming on? If you missed Michelle Mokusa on the show, please do, after the show's ended, rewind and have a listen to what she had to say. The most important thing, of course, is this. It's the Moog Foundation Fall Raffle. You can win a vintage mid-1970s-ish Mini Moog Model D, signed by Peter Gabriel, restored by our very own Kent Spong. Go to our YouTube channel. You'll find a video with Andrew talking you through the whole process and why it's why this raffle is happening, and the instrument itself. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we will be posting more videos. There's Andrew's kind of no talking demo video, and we will be putting something special up for our Patreon subscribers and YouTube members. They'll kind of get an exclusive window on a third video, which is very much more of a detailed overview of the instrument itself. But if you can, please do buy at least one raffle ticket. If you can buy more, you get discounts. All that money will help keep the foundation open at what is a very, very trying and testing time, because obviously we know that Asheville was hit by the hurricane, and although the Moogseum and everything else pretty much survived intact apart from a broken window here or there, it's the footfall that is going to really, really sting because you can't really go into it.
The whole creative sector has gone. That part of the town, and all the hotels can't open. So just go. By the way, I've played this, and I've had Mini Moogs in the past. This is the best sounding Mini Moog I have ever played. It is astonishing. It just is. Have a listen. You'll know. You'll listen.
Absolutely.
You'll hear.
And of course, if you are interested in. And why wouldn't you be in the Cherry Audio Polyvox? You can buy that now directly from Cherry Audio, or you can buy it from one of their partner sellers. It's $49 or €49. Go and buy that now. It's a huge amount of fun. There we go, indeed. Right, okay. Gentlemen, one and all, thank you ever so much. If you're going to be in Bristol over the weekend, for Machine and Bristronica, come and see myself and Peter. We have our stand there. Come and say hi. We'll be there all day Saturday, pretty much most of the Sunday before we have to sort of pack up and set off home. But come and say hi at Bristronica, and we look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks also to everyone that came up to us at Synthfest and said hi. It was wonderful to meet you all. Hope you all had safe journeys home and a wonderful weekend. That's it. I think we call this a show. Now, I have to say this. This is where we might get slightly unprofessional. We have a new outro system here. I only have to press one button and it does everything. So this could go horribly, horribly, horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Or it might go well. Let's see, shall we? Until next time, everyone, take care. We'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.